Well, good morning. We are going live now, I think. And I'm trying to go live on Instagram, but it's not working. Here we go. So it's just me today. And I think I've got all the right buttons going. So I see Teresa's out there from California. And I want to welcome you to our Facebook Live today. And the title of our live today is He Says He Will Change, but He Doesn't. What do I do? And so before we get started, I just want to remind you that we are on Leslie's public Facebook page. And so as a result of that, I want you to be a little bit cautious when you're commenting yeah, because it is not private. And so all of your comments will be seen and will be public record. So you will be able to go back to this video and you can watch at another time as well. So let's get started. Well, hi, Daleth. I hope I said your name right. We have just a few of you out there, and if you'll just comment, let me know you're there. I'm just checking the feed here to see who we've got. I see Debbie, Teresa, Jill. I see Mommy on Instagram. I believe I can see your comments on Instagram as well, which is a good thing, because I'd love to have a conversation with you today. Oh, I said your name right, Daleth. What a beautiful name. And so I am Coach Diana. I am one of Leslie's coaches on the team. And I want to just dive into this topic with you today because it is important. I know oftentimes when you're in a relationship with someone and things aren't going well, we often ask ourselves the question, is it likely to be different? Is it likely to change? Good morning, Megan. And so I guess I'd like to ask, are you in a relationship where you're noticing that he says he's going to change, but nothing really changes? Or if something changes, it's not really the depth of change that you need. If that's you, just put a 1 in the chat. And so I know that you're here with curiosity about your own life as well. Yeah. And so that's my question to you. Are you in a relationship? I see a 1. Yeah. Are you in a relationship where you're hoping someone changes? They've said they're going to change, but it's not real change. And if that's you, what are you noticing that's not changing? Maybe it's the speech. Maybe it's the behavior. Maybe it's the way that you're treated. But you're here for a reason, and it's affecting you. So what is it that's not changing? I know Leslie has spoken on this topic before, so I may cover some different things. So Megan is saying speech. His speech doesn't change. He said oftentimes what I hear is there may be an apology, but there's no behavior change. Maybe an acknowledgement of what's happening. Teresa's saying silent treatment and no communication. That can be painful. And often some of that behavior is meant to be used as a way of punishing. I'm not sure what the motive is, but other times it's just withdrawal, isolation. So I get curious when someone is behaving in these ways, what's going on with them? So he does apologize, but does not say he will change. So is that apology enough? How does that help when someone just says they're sorry, but they continue to behave in ways that you know are destructive for you? Yeah. And we have Anita from Belgium. It's nice to have you. Let's see. I don't believe you can comment anonymously. However, we do have a question tracker, and you can ask questions anonymously. Um, some individuals who want to comment anonymously on our Facebook Lives or on Facebook have a pseudo name and a pseudo profile that they'll go under. And that's one way you can. Um, so I'll leave it up to Karen. If you want to comment anonymously, Karen can put in the information for the question tracker that we have, and I'll put it in the feed here as well. And you can comment anonymously. Usually we use this for questions, but if you have something that you'd like to say, I will kind of monitor that as well. There you go. Believe actions, not words. Kathy, that is so powerful and that is so true. The actions lead you to someone's heart. You know, the Bible says that out of the abundance of the mouth, the heart speaks. So that is one indicator. But when you're dealing with often individuals that are destructive, um, sometimes they're really good with their words and they can massage their words to keep you in the same place, kind of like a treadmill effect. And you're still hoping and waiting and wanting change, but nothing's different. And you're weighing the words more heavily than you're watching the behavior. And so it's way more important, as the Bible teaches us, to examine the fruits of someone's behavior and to judge for ourselves what that means. All right. So I want to ask you, ladies, you know, caring for or dealing with a spouse that won't change can be very challenging and emotionally draining. So I wanted to give you a few steps and have you just have a conversation with me today and let me know where you're at with these things. And then I'm going to leave you with some thoughts about what you can do in a situation where he says he will change, but he doesn't change. So, I want to ask you some honest questions. I'm not going to assume that the person that you're dealing with is destructive. I'm just going to assume it's relational issues because we all know that it can be tough to be in the closest relationship which I think is a marital relationship. Even healthy couples have issues that they have to deal with. So I want to ask you a question. If you're expecting your partner to change, how do you know your expectations are realistic? So, the first step to assessing whether or not change is going to occur is asking myself, are my expectations communicated well? And are they realistic for my partner? Am I being reasonable about what I'd like to change? And is it realistic? So, I just got off a call with a client and we were talking about your checklist, and we were talking about what is your checklist, and I suggested that on my checklist I would never be with a partner that was an avid sports fan. I just can't do that. I can't even stand having it on in the background with the commentators. The sports commentators to me sound like they're barking. So for me, if I married a partner that was an avid sports fan, football, baseball, all of those things, and really enjoyed watching all of that, it would not be reasonable or realistic for me to expect that partner to change that for me. Now that's a little bit of an easier example. So when you think about your relationship and the change that needs to occur, are your expectations of what should change, A, communicated, and are they reasonable? That's different from realistic. And is it realistic? So if you ask yourself that question, where are you now? What are you hoping will change? And is it realistic and is it fair to ask? So we want to make sure that we're looking at this. First, we're taking the log out of our own eye and recognizing what's reasonable and realistic. Another way of assessing what's realistic is if he's always been this way, what's the greater likelihood without his motivation that he will change? And have you communicated what your desires are, what you would like to be different? And if you haven't communicated that, why not? So, are my expectations realistic? If you guys can give me some feedback in the chat, I'd love to have a conversation with you. I don't want this to just be a dialogue by me today. Ah, I see Christina has opened up a YouTube channel for Hispanic Christian women who are in destructive marriages. Wonderful support. Yeah. Mm. If he's always been a certain way, how realistic is it that he will change without his own desire to be different? But my first question is, have you been clear? So, for those of you who are out there who are saying you're in a relationship with someone that he says will change, but he doesn't, have you been specific? And have you been clear about what change needs to occur? And if that's a yes, just put a one in the chat. Mm. So, okay. So you've been clear. So my question to you then, you've been clear with your spouse and he's clearly not changing. Um, I have another question for you. How many of you are not able, because of who your spouse is? Maybe he's angry, maybe he's demeaning, maybe he's scary. How many of you are not able to have an open, honest, and non confrontational conversation where you can truly express what you want and what you need? And if that's you, put a two in the chat. I, the ones I have expressed honestly and with good communication what I would like to change, and the twos are I'm not comfortable doing that. He's not safe. He's explosive. I get scared. Or he demeans, he dismisses, he blame shifts. And so either way, for those of you who have communicated and it's still not changing, and for those of you that no longer can communicate, you've tried and it's not safe for you for whatever reason, you're stuck. One of the things you want to ask yourself is he just resistant to change? What's going on with him? And I'm sure you may have spent a lot of time on that. Maybe it's insecurity. Maybe it's lack of awareness. Maybe it's his prior trauma. Maybe it's just unmotivation or unwillingness. Oh, we've got a lot of twos here. You've expressed, you're done. He yells, it's not safe, right? And so often what we find ourselves doing is trying to assess what's going on with him. Could it be childhood trauma? Could it be conditioning by his parents? Um, is it just a lack of motivation? So we spend a lot of mind share and a lot of energy trying to understand and figure out what's going on with him. And my guess is when you're with someone who's resistant, unless they're willing to get help and go to a therapist or a marriage coach, you will not know. And in a lot of cases, when you're trying to get through to a partner who is resistant to change and who engages in destructive dynamics, like you've said, getting yelled at, turning on you, um, yeah, shutting you down, minimizing, denying. Um, Unless he gets help or is willing to seek a professional, you're not going to be able to trust what he reveals. And you're not going to be able to get to the bottom of what's going on within his heart. Mm. So, my question to you is how is his not changing affecting you? You've done all the things. You've assessed whether or not your expectations are realistic. They're reasonable. They're necessary for a healthy relationship, and it's not happening. I can no longer speak about it because it's unwelcome conversation and it harms me when I do. So the question to you now is, how is it affecting you? What do you notice is happening for you? The fact that he's not changing. I love asking this question because often we don't notice. We're still just trying to create a change. Maybe we're trying to survive, but what is the effect to you? There you go. Thank you, Autumn. Exhausting. I keep silent. I do what I can. I do what I can to keep the peace. I have no finances to move. That's a difficult place to be in. That exhausting. That's a mental, a physical, emotional, and a spiritual hardship. Depression. Ugh, I'm so sorry, Jennifer. So you ladies are really talking about, and you're witnessing for one another here in this context, in this community, what's happening for you. This inability for him to change and you being in that environment. Sadness, the stuck feeling, big anxiety. Oh, mercy. Walking on eggshells, feeling lonely. Ugh. Well, you're not alone. You may feel lonely, but you're not alone. There is a whole host of other women in our community that are in very similar situations that are here to hold you up. Don't, love this. Sandra saying, I know I don't want to spend time with him. That's a way to self preserve. Staying out of that space from him can allow your body a chance to relax, recover, be in a place where you can be yourself. So some of the harsher mean ways that this affects us is we do go to the lower end of our window of tolerance, and we live in a freeze mode, which for me is kind of like just lockdown, self-protect, shut down. And so it just hurts my heart to see you all saying these things. I'm quiet a lot, hopeless. Hmm. Wow. And so, Delath is saying, I just know I need to do something because I have constant anxiety and I feel sad and depressed. It is hard to feel you, let's see, as a Christian leader, it's hard to feel you won't make people feel disappointed if you end up leaving. Um, I think we need to choose to live real lives regardless, and God will take care of the consequences to other people. I want to answer this question. Um, you have a lot of good questions. I will get to all of them in a minute here. But the reason I ask, are you noticing how it's affecting you? My next question is, what do you want to do about that? Have you noticed how costly this is for you to be in this situation? I want to encourage you that there are some things that you can do. Even if you're saying, I cannot leave in this moment, there are ways that you can learn to recover your voice, to step out of isolation and loneliness. There are ways that you can find hope for your life, for your calling, and for your passion that God has called you to that don't involve Him. And it starts with you letting go of what's not different and what's not changing. And you know what, ladies? We all have relationships in our life. This specific topic is about your spouse, but we all have relationships that have been trying and difficult and that we hope could be different. And so one of the ways that we have to choose to move forward is to let go. I know we've had some Facebook topics about that. But when you recognize the cost to your body, here's what I'd like you to do. For those of you that are following with me today and you recognize, I want you to write down somewhere privately where no one else will find it on your phone, maybe. Maybe you can have a private journal at home. Notice the cost to you. Notice the cost to you right now and put down the date. And I'd like you to start stepping into different behavior. And the first thing I want to ask you to do is if you're in that spot where you say, I've said all I could say, I want you to just write that down. I've said all I could say. I've asked for what I needed. Because you need to know that you've done everything you could do. It's time for me to accept that he's not changing. And so the first step is acceptance. And when we step into acceptance, we have to tell ourselves the truth. He's not changing. We're not going to go to why he's not changing. We're just accepting the reality of it. He's not changing. Because what that does is it allows you to shift your focus off of him and puts your focus back on you. Now, what can I do about that? So, whatever the situation is, um, whether it's he's not changing in terms of how he behaves toward me, he's not changing giving up porn, he's not taking responsibility at home, he's not getting a job, he's allowing me to do all of the financial support, he won't give me access to the financial records. I'm going to shift my focus off of what he's not doing. And now I'm going to look at what I can control. Yeah. So your letting go it's not a one off. It's not just I'm choosing to let go and I'm done. It is a daily, regular practice. Just like walking with the Holy Spirit is a practice, we start out in the morning. And I don't know about you ladies, but I have a hard time with my thoughts. They just start rolling in the morning. And this morning I was reflecting and thinking to myself, because I did my devotional about walking in the way of Jesus and just living for him. And I'm thinking, my thoughts were already when I opened my eyes, my thoughts were already not there. They were just going all over about other things that are going on in my life. So it's an intentional moment by moment choice to let go. And so I've done all I could do. He's not changing. I'm choosing to let go. And so you start that way in the morning. You start with acknowledging the Holy Spirit and you ask him to give you the power and you're saying to him the serenity prayer. I am letting go of what I cannot change and what I cannot have control over. I don't have the serenity prayer up in front of me, but I will pull it up in just a minute. And how many of you are familiar with that? Here we go. I don't know it by heart, but it's a prayer for peace, strength, and wisdom. So it's grant me the serenity of mind to accept that which cannot be changed, and courage to change what can, and the wisdom to know the one from the other. And that comes through the power of the Holy Spirit. So maybe write down on your paper right now what cannot be changed. What is it specifically that is not changing, that can't be changed? Write it down. He's not going to do the chores. He won't cut the grass. I have to do it all. Doesn't discipline the kids, doesn't support me, doesn't partner with, whatever it is. Write it down so you can stop fighting in your heart and in your mind in angst against it. And now I want to focus on you. This is the good part. If he's resistant to change and you observe the resistance, now you've noticed how it's affected you. You can still choose to love him, whatever that looks like in terms of being kind, but we're not going to enable him. You're going to allow him to be who he's going to be, but you're going to be different. And your focus is now off of him. You're letting go. A part of that letting go is grieving. It's not what I wanted. It hurts, but I'm letting go because once I let go, now I have power to choose what I can do for me. And for many of you that you've put in the chat what it's costing you, those consequences are devastating. And so now it's time to start rebuilding you. And I don't know about you ladies, but I'm in this decade of my life where I have to focus on myself physically because my physical body can't endure what it used to. Mainly, I work at a desk. Um, and so I have to intentionally work hard at conditioning my body. I want to invite you ladies um, to conditioning your bodies, your minds, your spirits. And the first thing that needs to happen is as I'm letting go, what am I going to turn towards? And the first thing is setting some healthy boundaries for yourself, communicating your needs to yourself. You matter. And identifying what's essential for your well being. So let's just start by setting some realistic goals for yourself, working on you. And how do we do that? I want to invite you, for those of you who are not a part of our Conquer community, I want to invite you to join us on that journey. We have many tools. You're not alone. I want you to invite you in the context of the Conquer community to join with thousands of other women who get it, who are in similar circumstances, who are looking to recover their physical self, their emotional self, and their spiritual self. God does not intend for you to be drained to the point of not being well in any relationship that you're in. In fact, he tells us to flee those relationships that are destructive to us. I'm going to look up. Yeah, I think it was Psalms 101 I was reading. And in Psalms 101, he talks about not walking with people who don't have similar values, who are destructive to us. I want to encourage you to learn, what is it like to walk with other individuals? And I'm going to look here for my little flag here. What is it like to walk with other individuals who have the same values that you have, who want the same things, and mainly want to be encouraged, built up, and growing in strength and maturity and healthiness in relationship? I want to invite you to the workshop that we're having that's going to help you lay the foundation of what that looks like. The workshop is entitled, where do we have it here? Where is the title of it? Oh, if he doesn't hit you, is it still abuse? So many of you haven't really identified what specifically is happening in your situation, but I have a feeling and a hunch that when you're experiencing what you've written in the chat, and you've already said everything you can say, and you're being demeaned, dismissed, disregarded, and worse, you don't have a voice to speak out safely. How do you define that? Is that abusive or is it destructive? Leslie's going to talk all about that, and I love the way she delineates how the Word of God teaches us to clearly identify what is abuse. And so if you're curious about that and you want to understand at a deeper level possibly what's happening to you and why you feel like your well-being is affected, I want to invite you to join this workshop. And I believe it is, when is it? September 24th at 12 o'clock. And that is just next week, ladies. And if you've not been on any of our workshops, I want to encourage you that it is a complete training and it's interactive. So you'll want to maybe set some time aside. We have it at noon and at 7:30, and you'll want to join us for the whole time because there'll be a really significant question and answer period at the end where Leslie will provide wisdom and godly knowledge to answer some of your questions. All right, I'm going to look at some of your notes here. So Jesse is saying, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, taking it as Jesus did, trusting that he will make all things right if I surrender to his will. So I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with him forever in the next. I want to encourage you to, if you have not registered already, to register for this workshop. Leslie will be very clear about what is God's will and what is not God's will in a relationship. Yeah, I love that, Teresa. And so, a part of what we notice, the work that we do, ladies, is we shift our focus and our attention from making our spouse the primary uh, focus of our attention and efforts to really shifting back to the Lord, but really also shifting back to you. And I think often we are reluctant to think about our needs because we feel that it's selfish. But my in my heart and mind, I don't know how you could walk with the Lord without focusing on yourself, because God lives within you and he is prompting you and encouraging you. All right. I'm just trying to read what we've got in Instagram and Facebook at the same time. All right. So here's the thing. You know how the scripture talks about when you become a believer, you leave what is old behind and you become a new person. I almost feel like it's time to shed the old wineskins. Like maybe you've been in this marriage for decades and you have been trying to resolve this. You all are smart women. If you could have resolved it, you would have. So it's time to just choose to do different. And so what I find with the women that I get blessed to have the opportunity to work with, they do change. They do find vitality. They do find nourishment and refreshment for their body, but you must engage on the journey. And the journey is to really decide what are the decisions I need to make and what are the steps forward. But before we do that, we have to identify whether or not we're willing to embark on the journey. All right, ladies, I'm going to switch over and I'm going to take some of your questions. Okay, so Jennifer's saying, my husband doesn't want me going to church because it put miles on the car and wastes gas. I have asked him to go with me. He refuses. I've asked him to watch The Chosen with me, and he said, I don't want to watch that crap. So you're saying he doesn't want you to go. You're not saying that he forbids you. He's putting up a resistance. And this is a perfect example. He is choosing, and he's really clear about what he's choosing and how he's wanting to live. The question is, do you participate with that, or do you choose differently? And what will that look like? And if you're not met with resistance, what would prevent you from choosing what you know God is directing you toward? And if you're met with resistance, how can you choose to move forward with what God has for you, regardless of the outcome with Him? Because His choice is here to keep you from church and to keep you really to not participate with you in the things that would nourish your soul is the reason you're feeling physically and mentally exhausted. We need one another. As believers, it's a hard road. And we need to find like-minded people who will challenge us spiritually, encourage us, and build us up. All right, I'm gonna go to the questions now, Karen. If you need me, just prompt me on the Facebook tracker. So the first question is, in an abusive relationship for decades, emotionally and mentally, He said he's not going to get help to change, but is afraid he said he's going to get help to change. Going to isn't that he's doing it, but he is afraid he's the only one that will be changing. My guess is he wants me to remove all boundaries I've set in place for my safety, sexual intimacy, and affection. Well, you've said a lot there. You've said I've had to put boundaries in place for my own safety. Yay for you. You took some action and you set some boundaries in place. And so the first question I want to ask you is, now that you've set those boundaries in place, I don't know for how long you've had them. How are you different? What are you noticing is better for you now that the boundaries are there? Take all that in. What are some other boundaries that you might need to put in place? And it's interesting to me, one of the things that you will notice when someone is desperate for things to get better and they're focused on the relationship getting better, they will do whatever it takes regardless. I I sense some resistance here. He's afraid he's the only one that will be changing, and I would encourage you to ask him some questions. Help me understand what you think will not change as you do your work. What change would you be looking for with me? Because you're guessing, I would ask him to nail it down. And I would ask you another question. And so we can't have a dialogue now because this is not live, two-way. But you said you have put some things in place for your safety, and I believe that was absolutely necessary if you have done so. And so, what would it take for you to feel safe enough to drop those boundaries? That may be information he needs to know, but it's information that you need to know as well in terms of ever dropping those boundaries. What needs to happen for me to feel safe with you intimately and affectionately? Maybe it's porn, maybe it's the way he looks at other women. I don't know. But if he's willing to address those things in a consistent uh, pattern of change where he has accountability to someone and he's addressing the heart attitudes, there may be a path forward. All right. Let's see what time we have. I'm going to go to question number 2. What about asking your husband not to stare at other women? Is that unrealistic? Well, I think in a healthy relationship where two people are mutual, caring, and loving for one another, if you notice that your spouse has a wandering eye and he's looking at other women, um, and you said to him, that bothers me and it affects me, it would be natural for him to say, I'm so sorry. I wasn't aware. I'll work on that. So it would be fine to ask him and to let him know that it really bothers you. I don't think it's unrealistic. I think it's unrealistic to demand that he not stare at other women. But the other part of this is, what is it communicating to you that he is doing it? And if and when you ask him to stop, what does it communicate to you about his response? There's like so many more pieces to this, because if he's staring at other women, what are the ways in which you notice that he behaves toward other women? The ideas and attitudes that he has about women. This is what we're talking about in terms of heart attitude. The fact that he's doing it is good information, but what does it mean? And so I would encourage you to ask and see what happens. I would not demand. And yeah, and just to be clear, we can't set boundaries on someone. I can't tell someone else what they can and cannot do, but I can tell them what I will do if their behavior continues. So hopefully that's helpful. Oh, so I do have some more information here. When you've told him that it hurts you that he's looking at other women, he says that's just what men do, so deal with it. That's a dismissive attitude. So that's really good information. He's telling you that he wants to be a basic, ungodly, uh, um, objectifying kind of a man. So it's giving you a lot of information about where his head and his heart is at. Um, do you agree with that? I mean, a simple response to that might be, I don't agree. And that's not the kind of a man that I know you can be. And that's not the kind of a man that I want to be connected to. Um, so you can continue that dialogue and gain more information, but he's basically telling you that his bar is really low. And so I encourage you to maybe do some work with him on that and challenge him and see where that might go. If he continues to dismiss me, you already know that you're having a circular argument with a fool, and there's no point in continuing it. But it gives you a lot of information into how he chooses to see women and how he devalues their personhood. And that's going to be reflective if you have daughters and for you as well. All right. Where are we now? After 41 years of marriage, I'm tired of all the reconciliation again and again. I don't trust him anymore. I'm taking steps to leaving. Oh, so I appreciate your question. I'm going to take a drink here. That's a long time. And when you say, I don't have a lot of information here, I would encourage you to come to the workshop and bring your questions as well. And I think Leslie will be on with the coaches. We'll all be interacting with the Q&A afterwards. I'm believing that's what we're going to do. So you're saying that you don't trust him, and probably for good reason. It sounds like you've been through this again and again and again. I don't know what the reconciliation is all about. Because if there's not trust, my guess is you've chosen to forgive and to give another opportunity again and again and again for things to be different. It doesn't sound like things are different. And so as a result, you're deciding that you're done. And without knowing the history, I can't make a judgment on whether or not you're exaggerating, but I will encourage you, examine the evidence. You've been doing this for 41 years. Have you done your work? That's the biggest question. And what is the work that I have done? I've tried everything I can try. I've hung in there. I've worked on my attitude. I've responded in godly, loving, and accountable ways. And yet still trust is eroding. I can't change him. Now, what's my next step forward? And I'm guessing that for many of you, when you take steps to leave, you're recognizing that there's nothing left here to do, and it's damaging to you. And so that may be your next step forward. I'm not certain. Yeah. Okay. So thank you for your questions. You guys are really interactive today. Thank you so much for your interacting in the feed. It's really hard to get on a Facebook. I love getting on with other coaches because it's a little bit easier, but you guys are making it a wonderful time for us to really engage in some difficult things. All right. Sandra's asking, what podcast can you recommend that teaches me how to tell my husband my needs? They seem so obvious to me, but apparently not to him. I don't really know offhand of a podcast that I would recommend. I do, oh mercy, I can't think of her name now. I think her name is Estelle. Oh, I'm looking her up for you. Esther Perel. I like her. She's a Belgian psychotherapist. She's really good with marital stuff. But it sounds to me like what you're asking. I'll put her in the chat. She's pretty. And the other thing I would, when we're talking about how to share your needs or communication, You kind of want to look for some information from John Gottman and his wife. It's Gottman. They are experts in marriage. Uh, they've identified the variables that are helpful for successful marriages. And if I was going to get marriage counseling, which I'm not saying you need marriage counseling, but if I was going to get some marriage information or advice, I would go to someone who's gotten trained or informed. And but communicating your needs can be as simple as first defining them and then expressing them in the first person. I'm really feeling like I need you to hear me differently. Um, so there's just a couple simple tips there is first defining what's most important to me, writing it out, scripting it in the first person. Are you willing to take the time to listen to what I need? I want to express to you from my heart what are my most basic needs. I really need for you to communicate to me when you're done with work, when you're coming and going. And you might want to express why that's important to you. All right. I do have a hard stop at one, lady, so I'm going to try to go through these questions as fast as I can or as best I can. How do I know if my expectations are real? I asked him if I could take on some parental responsibilities so I'm not parenting from the moment my child's wake up. I asked him if he could take on some responsibilities. So I'm not parenting from the moment my child wakes up till he goes to sleep. He agreed, but he does not do it, and I find myself reminding him. I try to talk to him about it peacefully, but he turns it into a joke. Huh. I try to stay on point with the conversation and ask him to be serious, and then he gets angry and attacks me by his angry words. He will try to turn it around on me. So, first question I have, how do you know your expectations are not real? What information would you have that would suggest that your expectations aren't real? I think you're saying realistic. Is it realistic for you to expect your partner to share in the parenting responsibilities? Um, it's interesting. I'm in a group, it's a leadership group, and I'm in it with some men and some women. And I have to tell you, there are some wonderful, godly men in the group. And the first thing that I've observed with these men is they're wanting to be there for their wives. They're considerate of all that their wives are doing and all the work they're taking on, and they're seeking to be an active parent and to be active in whatever it takes, picking the kids up from school, taking time with the kids so their wife can have time off. And for me, that's not an unreasonable expectation. That's what partnering is all about. When your partner is doing what this guy is doing to you, he's telling you that he's not interested in supporting you or partnering with you. And when you remind him or bring it up, when he's mocking you or he's using anger, he's trying to get you to back off because he's not willing. He'll say he's willing, but he's really not willing. He's shutting you down. And so my question to you is, what will you do? He's telling you no in some of the worst ways possible. What do you do about that? Do you continue to allow him to engage in this form of abuse? I want to encourage you especially to join this workshop. You will get a replay, but we would like you to do it live, and I would love for you to be in the Q&A. I'd love also to hear what Leslie has to say for this, but we want to provide you with some tools and some answers. We don't want you to stay stuck in confusion, exasperation, and discouragement because you are important and the role you have is important. The way he's behaving to you is going to translate to how you feel about you, and the kids are going to be affected by that. That's not okay. So I hope you find some support in that no, your expectations are not unreal. And he's saying some very strong things to you with his behavior, and it's not okay. It's not how it's meant to be for you. Um, it's how it is, but it's not how it could be or should be when we're partnering with a man. All right, we've got 10 minutes. What if you try to avoid him, but his anxious attachment hates that and pursues you more? Aggressively? Can people actually change if they've been abusive? That's a big question. I don't know. I don't know how to respond through the attachment style, but I do notice that you're trying to stay safe. There's a part of you that's saying, I'm not comfortable here, so I'm avoiding because being in your presence doesn't feel okay for me, um, for my body, for my heart, for my mind, whatever. And so you're seeking as a defensive mechanism to find some safety and some distance from him. And his response is to pursue you more aggressively. I'm not sure what that's about for him, but I'm wondering if you could say that to him. I'm not feeling comfortable with you. And when I pull away, you get angry or you get more aggressive. And that makes it harder for me to be in that space with you. Are you aware this is happening? And see what he does with that. Sometimes it's good to make the covert overt. And sometimes people are not aware of their behavior. So I might just reflect to him and say, Are you, sometimes even in a conversation, you can say to somebody, Are you aware that you're really angry right now? I'm feeling it, I'm sensing it. Or you don't even have to say that you are. You can say, Are you aware? Or let me say that differently. I'm feeling a lot of anger right now. What's going on for you? Is there a better way for you to ask what you need from me rather than to be aggressive with me? That just pushes me away more. And I want to hide. See what he does with that. And then come back and let us know how it went because there's information. Once you get that information, then you'll be able to ask yourself what's next. All right. He goes to church and life groups and Bible study. Now, after I'd asked, and now he's asked for counseling, but now comes home in his room in the silent treatment. And house needs are not his priority. Am I dealing? Uh, okay, so this doesn't sound like a question. This sounds like a statement um, that he's now getting involved in church and life groups and Bible study when maybe in the past you'd asked. Um, it sounds like he's withdrawn and shut down. I don't know what's going on there. Um, and I would say to you, yeah, it is hard. I don't understand what his behavior is about, but it's communicating to you. Um, and it's interesting that he may be doing the things that you've asked him to do with you for so long, and now he's choosing to do it without you. So and his behavior is, I say duplicitous, but that's not the right word for that. But his behavior is, it's confusing. It's dichotomous. It's like he's doing one thing. He wants to go to counseling, but then he's giving me the silent treatment, and he comes home and goes to his room. Um, I'm not his priority, but he's getting something there, and I want relationship with him, and it's hurtful. I sometimes do a reframe when you're getting the silent treatment, especially if you're with someone that's toxic, and hard to be around. But then when they give you the silent treatment, it feels like isolating, punishing, like abandonment and rejection. I kind of choose to say, consider it a vacation. Um, if you looked at the silent treatment as time for your system to get away from all of that and be on its own and get some restoration and refreshment, What if you just considered that a vacation from him? That you don't have to engage in the toxic dynamics. How would that shift how you perceive the silent treatment as punishment or as maybe just kind of a treat for you of not having to engage with him? I think that can help. All right, where are we going? Let's see. Um, okay. I just want to respond to this question that we don't offer groups specifically in Spanish. We don't have any Spanish speaking because we don't have Spanish speaking coaches. I would love to learn Spanish and was going to, but I'm not proficient. So the groups are all in English. The videos do have closed captions and transcripts to help you when you're reviewing the material if Spanish is your first language. But I will tell you, I have women from all different cultures, and many of the women that I work with in the groups and even individually, English is not their first language, and it it I would say it still works. Um, it's different, certainly, than working with someone who's in your first language, but I do believe it can be effective. Let's see. Oh, so the question is, in my case, after every episode of abuse, my husband the next day acts like nothing just happens, or he kisses the wounds. I don't think I've ever grieved what he actually really does to me. Now it's head on, and I feel I need to grieve the abuse in order to move on. Does this? Oh, yeah. This makes sense. This is a normal feeling. So there's a couple things here I want to speak to. He doesn't get to act like nothing's happened because your body can't do that. Your body is storing up every episode of abuse and carrying it. So he can do whatever he wants, but that's not the truth. He can maybe shove it away and pretend and continue on his way, but the reality is I'm still feeling it. I'm still experiencing it. And so there is a process of grieving what he's done to you. And again, I when I walk women through this individually, we look at the impact. We recall the record of what's happened and allow you to walk through that in a way that helps you to process that and grieve that. Um, and when you say move on, I'm not comfortable with that in order to move on. Um, I know you want maybe I would change that to move forward. I need to grieve the abuse in order to move forward. So my question to you would be, what does if you were to be able to grieve the abuse, which I believe uh, involves forgiving, remembering what he's done, and recognizing what the effect is on you, what would your next steps be to moving forward? So it would be grieving the abuse is remembering what he's done, recalling its effect on you even now. And choosing to forgive is very different. Choosing to forgive is giving it to God, and that's an act. That's a spiritual piece. And yes, it makes sense. And I'm sorry. Uh, I'm sorry because it sounds like there's been a cumulative effect for you. Um, and there's nothing more infuriating and confusing than someone just being nice to you and your body's still stuck in, this was hard, this was horrible, I still feel awful, and I don't trust. So hopefully that's helpful. I've got so ladies, yeah, so the freedom to visit your family abuse is something I would do in individual work. And there's some really good tools for that. There's some really good methods for that as well, because I do believe that often our family abuse has a direct correlation to the person that we choose. Um, and I apologize, ladies. I wish I had more time with you. I would go for another half hour if I could, but I cannot. I want to ask you: have you signed up for the workshop? If you have not, there's one question that I haven't gotten to, and we're going to leave it on the board because let's see, Monday, I'm gonna be live with Susan, and we're gonna be talking about how can I have a relationship with someone who keeps lying to me, and so keep your question on there, um, on the board, and, we will come back to us on Monday. So, if you haven't signed up for the workshop, why? And then for me personally, what are your takeaways from today? Whether it's, an insight, uh, an aha moment, encouragement that you received that you're gonna take with you. What is it that impacted you today from the time that we've spent together? If you would just please put that in your chat, we review that. It's important to us. You are important to us. And we're here because God has called us and we want to love you well and, yeah, and support you well. So we'll get a chance to do that again on Tuesday, noon and 7:30. We'll be there with you and for you. Uh, so I'm just going to give you a minute to kind of respond in the chat and let me know what's been helpful for you today. And I think I need to stop. I don't know how to stop. This is so interesting, ladies. I'm not that great with Instagram. So I don't even know how to quit the live on Instagram. But while you're filling out the chat, I think somewhere I have to stop Instagram. Hmm, there we go. Thank you so much for joining us on Instagram. I'm going to stop the feed now there, but we're still live on Facebook. All right. Yes, there will be a replay for this. You will find it in Leslie's Facebook page. If you're interested in one-on-one sessions, you can reach out to us. Leslie has a coaching page. Uh, let me see if I can find that quickly for you before I need to go. Let's see, here we go. I put that in the chat for you. Yeah, I love Psalms 101. I've been living that out. I have to memorize scripture more. It's so rather than those thoughts just going automatic in the morning, I'd rather have scripture being rehearsed in my mind. So thank you, ladies. God bless you. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you again on Monday. Bye-bye for now.